The DeLorean DMC-12 is one of the strangest business ghosts in modern car history. You know the shape before you know the company. Brushed stainless steel, gull-wing doors, a profile that still looks like someone parked the future on the street. But the promise of this video is not that the car became famous. The promise is the contradiction, iconic and insolvent. The car most people remember from pop culture became globally famous after the company behind it had already collapsed. DeLorean Motor Company was in receivership in February 1982. Factory production shut down by late May. Bankruptcy followed in October. The first Back to the Future film arrived later, after the business story was already over. That timing is the whole trap. In a normal startup myth, the product catches public imagination and the company rides that attention into scale. Here, the order was backwards. The myth matured after receivership, after production stopped, after bankruptcy. The car won the attention battle too late to help the operating company pay for workers, fix early cars, or reassure lenders. So the question is not, why did people remember the car? That part is easy. The harder question is, how did a product this memorable fail as a company almost immediately after full-scale production began? The answer is not one bad day. It is a chain, a late factory, a hard car to build, quality problems, weak sales, high costs, and a cash crisis that arrived before the brand had time to mature. The DeLorean project was not a tiny hobby car that accidentally got attention. It was pitched as a serious industrial bet. The company relied heavily on British government support for startup costs, and the factory location in Northern Ireland was tied to job creation. That matters because DeLorean was selling two dreams at once. To buyers, the dream was a new kind of sports car, something sharper and stranger than the usual showroom choice. To governments and workers, the dream was a new manufacturing base, jobs, exports, and proof that a glamorous product could grow from a region that badly needed industrial hope. The plant at Dunmurry was huge, 6 buildings, about 660,000 square feet. That scale made the promise feel real. It also made the risk larger. A sketch can be delayed quietly, a full factory cannot. Once the public money, the workers, the dealers, and the buyers are waiting, every slipped month becomes more than a schedule issue. It becomes a credibility problem. And because the project was tied to public support and job creation, failure would not stay inside the company. If the plant could not turn money and labor into shipped accepted cars, the damage would land on workers, taxpayers, and the public agencies that had backed the bet. And for a while, the car itself made belief easy. The DMC-12 did not look like a cautious compromise. It had brushed stainless steel panels instead of normal paint. It had gull-wing doors, the kind of feature that makes people stop thinking about depreciation and start imagining movie posters. It was a rear-engine, two-seat sports car aimed at the American market, and it had the rare ability to be recognized instantly from a single photograph. That image was the company's greatest asset, but it also hid the basic test every car business has to pass. Once the photos are taken, the car still has to be priced, built, shipped, serviced, and sold in enough volume, and that is where the trap begins. The DMC-12 listed around USD 25,000. At that price, attention was not enough. A buyer could admire the doors and still ask the brutal showroom question, what am I getting for the money? The more futuristic the car looked, the more painful it became when the business had to answer with ordinary numbers. Image could create the first conversation, but it could not pay warranty claims, cover shipping delays, or make dealers comfortable holding cars that customers might only want to photograph. Here's where the story leaves the poster and enters the factory. Production was scheduled for 1979, but engineering delays and budget overruns pushed assembly into early 1981. That is a major problem for a startup car company because time does not pause while engineers fix the product. Money keeps going out, expectations keep rising, dealers keep waiting, a workforce has to be trained, suppliers have to line up, and at Dunmurry, many workers were inexperienced. That does not make the workers the villains. It means the operating challenge was enormous. Launch a new company in a new factory with an unusual car under public pressure and do it fast. The early cars showed how hard that was. Quality issues included body panel fit, higher output alternators, and gull-wing door adjustments. DeLorean had to use quality assurance centers in California, New Jersey, and Michigan to fix early production cars after they crossed the ocean. That is an expensive sentence. The factory was not just producing inventory, it was producing work that still needed more work. Every extra adjustment had a cost beyond the part itself. It meant more handling, more delay, more uncertainty, and a greater chance that the buyer's first real contact with the future would be a repair note. A late factory can survive if the product lands perfectly. DeLorean's problem was that the delay met a car that still needed convincing. The DMC-12 looked expensive, and it was expensive, but its performance did not match the fantasy. Road and track measured 0 to 60 mph in 10.5 seconds. The car is identified with weak power and performance, which is a rough label for something priced like a premium sports or grand touring machine. This is the value problem at the center of the failure. A strange car can sell, an expensive car can sell, even a slow car can sell if buyers understand exactly what it is. But DeLorean was asking buyers to pay for a future object while accepting present-day compromises, quality fixes, muted acceleration, and a price that made comparison shopping unavoidable. The stainless steel made the car stand out. It did not make the monthly payment smaller. And once the first wave of curiosity slowed down, the company needed repeatable demand, not just admiration. That is the cruel part of a premium niche product. The more it depends on desire, the less room it has for disappointment. One road test, one bad delivery, or one hesitant dealer can turn a dream car into a risky purchase. The cleanest way to see the failure is the volume math. DeLorean's break-even estimate was 10,000 to 12,000 units. Actual sales were around 6,000. That gap alone tells you the company was not just missing a nice bonus target, it was missing the level needed to make the business model work. Then the inventory picture gets worse. By the end of 1981, DMC had produced about 7,500 cars but sold only about 3,000. That means production had raced ahead of the market. On a balance sheet, unsold cars are not trophies. They are cash trapped in metal, glass, labor, shipping, and financing costs. They need storage. They create pressure on dealers. They make lenders nervous. They make the next production decision harder. The car's body panels resisted rust, but the company could not make its its cash position resist time. And the calendar was brutal because just as the business needed sales momentum, the market sent the opposite signal. If DMC slowed production, the giant factory looked even more uneconomic. If it kept producing, inventory could grow faster than buyers. That is the startup manufacturing trap. The machine needs volume to survive, but volume without demand can speed up the crash. Break-even math is unforgiving because it turns every missed sale into two problems: revenue that never arrived and capacity that still had to be paid for. A startup can survive being small if it is built to be small. DeLorean was built for scale before the market proved it wanted that many cars. January 1982 is the moment the rescue window starts closing. That month, DMC sold only about 350 cars. For a company that needed thousands of units to justify its factory, that number was not just disappointing, it was a warning siren. In the same period, a hoped-for USD 27 million holding company stock issue was canceled after Securities and Exchange Commission questions about viability. Then DMC entered receivership in February 1982. In March, Bank of America sued DeLorean over loan defaults and asked for 1,979 cars in reparation. Put those pieces together and the shape of the crisis becomes clear. Demand was weak, financing was shaky, creditors were moving. The company was no longer fighting for a better launch, it was fighting to stay alive, and receivership did not instantly end the story. It revealed something even more damaging: the people closest to the car still would not buy enough of it to save the business. This is the point where the glamorous founder story stops mattering. A company in this position needs cash, trust, and time. DeLorean was losing all three at once. The dealer test is the whole collapse in miniature. In March 1982, DMC asked all 343 dealers to buy 6 cars each to help save the company. Think about what that request means. This was not a random public survey. These were the dealers attached to the brand, the people with the most direct incentive to keep the pipeline alive. 6 cars each was the ask, not a lifetime commitment, not a new factory, 6 cars. And according to the source record, none responded with a sales order. That is the moment the hype separates from confidence. The cars existed, the showroom network existed, the brand was famous enough to be recognized, but the market participants who had to put money behind the story did not move. A company can survive jokes, it can survive bad reviews, it can even survive a rough first model if believers keep buying time. DeLorean ran out of believers with purchase orders. Even if that dealer request would not have solved every debt, it would have been a signal that the channel still believed the product could move. The silence sent the opposite signal. Once the dealer rescue failed, the remaining timeline moved fast. Factory production shut down by late May 1982. Bankruptcy followed in October. The final production count is not even perfectly clean because records were scattered after shutdown. Estimates put total DeLorean production around 8,975 to 9,000 cars. That detail feels small, but it says a lot. Mature automakers count production like a heartbeat. The number is ordinary because the system is stable. DeLorean's final number became an estimate because the company did not get a stable ending. It broke apart while the car was still new, leaving cars, parts, records, creditors, workers, dealers, and buyers to sort through the aftermath. For Northern Ireland, the failure also meant public losses and the collapse of a job creation promise. For customers, it meant owning a car whose maker had vanished. For the auto industry, it became a warning that spectacle can raise money, but it cannot replace execution. The tragedy is that several pieces were real: a striking car, a real factory, real demand from enthusiasts, and real political urgency. They just did not line up in the order the business needed. And then the strangest part happened. Most failed car companies fade as soon as the factory lights go out. DeLorean failed first, then became more famous. Back to the Future turned the DMC-12 into a permanent cultural symbol after the company was already gone. That is why this story still works as a corporate graveyard case study. The product's image succeeded in a way the business never did. The car looked like the future. The company died because the future did not arrive on schedule. The factory was late, the cars needed fixes, the price and performance created a value problem, sales missed the break-even math, inventory piled up, financing tightened, dealers would not rescue it. None of those facts make the DMC-12 less interesting, they make it more useful. DeLorean proves that attention is not product market fit, and icon status is not a business model. A company can build something unforgettable and still fail if the boring machinery underneath cannot turn admiration into cash fast enough. That is the final irony. The DMC-12 won the memory game better than many successful cars, but memory is not payroll, and myth is not working capital. The company needed boring proof before the legend arrived.